Okay, so the previous little subroutine that we wrote, we're going to take the square root of 5 minus some number and output that. And let's go ahead and we'll mess around with some of the formatting in the message box. And we'll also go through a little bit of some debugging tools that we can use over there. So I'm going to go from developer into my Visual Basic. And here's my original module. Now, rather than just change this one, I'm actually going to go ahead, right-click, and insert a new module. And I will copy the code from my old module, Control-C, into my new module. And then I'm also going to give it a new name. So instead of X1, I'm going to call this X2. And this will have kind of both versions of my program saved in there. Okay, so I'll go ahead and exit out of X1. It's still there. I just have to click on it and it'll pop up again. But just to declutter, I'll get rid of that. And for this one, what I would like to have is instead of your number, I would like to actually output what was typed into the input box. And for all of this coding stuff, chances are you'll be able to find what someone else has created on the internet, but you'll want something just slightly different in your code. So you're going to have to kind of study the code that has gone before and try and pick up on patterns and use those patterns to modify it, to custom tailor whatever you want. Okay, so what's going on for our message box is we have a string. We then have and we have this output variable. So let's kind of take that and say, I want more than just and y, I want and x. So the square root of 5 minus, I'm going to end my string right there. I'm going to try this little and sign. Okay, so we'll see if that works. Let me count up. So here's our first string of text. The square root of 5 minus, hopefully it will put x. Then we have another little string. So here's our next string. So we're going to end that parentheses. Sometimes you have to really think through these parentheses of what's going with what here. So the next string of characters is right here, and then we'll have y. So we'll see if that works and just kind of experiment on it. And sometimes it may or may not work. Another way to run your code is just by hitting the little run button up here. So we'll go ahead and I'll save it and run it. So enter number less than 5. I'm going to hit 1. And we have the square root of 5 minus 1 is 2. So that's much nicer to have that 1 in there. So or if we can run it again and say, maybe we want to have minus 2. The square root of 5 minus 2 is the square root of 3. Okay, so that's much nicer in there. So yeah, study what has gone before, pick up on patterns, and then experiment with it, modify it. Another thing I'd like to do is walk through some debugging techniques using this locals window down here. And to do this, instead of hitting the run button, I'm actually going to hit the F8 key, and I'm going to keep hitting it over and over again. So I hit it once, and it's highlighting the line that it's currently going through. And I also have all of the variables that are going on in the subroutine and what value those variables are and what type we're looking at. So we declare these as doubles, and right now nothing has been assigned. So x is 0, y is 0. To advance to the next line, I'm going to hit F8 again. So now it's going to try and pull up an input box. I'm going to hit F8 again. So here's my input box. I'm going to put a number in here. Let's say 2. So now I can see X isn't 0 anymore. X is now 2 because I just typed that in. Here's the next line. So it hasn't executed that line yet. My Y value is still not assigned anything, but I'll go ahead and hit F8 again. And now you'll see that my Y has a new value. It has actually gone through and done that calculation, and we've moved on to the message box. So if I hit F8 again, it will execute this message box line. So there's my output, and we've made it to the end of the subroutine. So this is a very valuable tool, this local windows, for keeping track of what your program is doing line by line, variable by variable, and it really helps to walk through your logic to see what's going on. So remember that F8 tool. Okay, so far so good, but what if our user does not follow directions? What if our user types in, let's say, instead of a number less than 5, maybe a number greater than 5. So if they hit 8, what is this going to do to our program? So I'll hit 8, and we have a runtime error, invalid procedure call or argument. And of course, you can't take the square root of a negative number. That's what's going on here. So we can go ahead and either end the program here and try and figure out what's going on our own, or we can go ahead and hit the debug. And look at how nice this is. It actually highlights where the program stopped, where the problems are. So this is really, really nice. It wasn't around when I was a kid to go line by line and show you exactly where your mistake was and help you fix everything. So there's some really nice debugging tools in here. So be aware of those. Okay, the next time through, we'll go ahead and maybe think through a few different ways to help our user if they put in something that does not compute.